Lots going on in the world, and we'll be talking about that here on the World Edition as usual. Like I said, there's a number of things taking place on the global side and everything like that. Thailand condemns Hormuz ship strike and demands an Iran apology. So oil sees a historic disruptions as Iran escalates attacks on shipping. So Iran escalates attacks on infrastructure and transport networks across the Gulf. So it looks like this war is definitely continuing in that part of the world as six vessels were attacked in the Gulf Strait of Hormuz as war puts merchant ships on the front lines. And three more ships were struck in the Persian Gulf as Iran warns of oil prices hitting $200. That would definitely be some serious price at the pump and all along those lines if those prices are accurate and everything like that. Russian court convicts 19 people over deadly 2024 Moscow concert hall attack. So that's definitely something that people are talking about as well. And according to some sources, the new Iranian supreme leader had a fractured foot and face laceration on his first day of being in charge. So it looks like Mujtaba Kamani was hurt in strike that killed his father, is what Iran's Cyprus ambassador confirms. So North Korea voices support for Iran's new leader and denounces the attack. And Giorgio Meloni, Trump's friend in Europe, seeks distance on Iran. So Meloni joins EU chorus criticizing Trump's strike on Iran. And Italy's Meloni condemns a massacre at Iranian school, says war outside international law. Italy won't join the U.S. Israeli attacks on Iran, is what Meloni is saying. And North Korea leader Kim and his daughter try out new pistols at a shooting range. So they were trying out some new weapons and all along those lines. And war against Iran expands into Lebanon as Israel battles Hezbollah. So Hezbollah returns to guerrilla roots and awaits Israeli invasion. Another front in the war with Iran, the Israel-Lebanon border. So IDF admits it failed to warn Israelis on Hezbollah barrage. And Iran war causes biggest ever oil market disruption, is what the IEA is saying. So oil prices spikes again as Iran ships attacks surge. So it looks like we're definitely going to be dealing with some cost at the pumps and all along those lines. And Ukraine showed NATO artillery crews how to use drones. So in Norwegian Arctic, civilian doctors and volunteer casualties rehearse for war, and nations withdraw some equipment from the NATO Arctic exercise amid the Iran fallout. Russia warns of missile firing north of Norway, as NATO begins cold response exercise. And Trump news at a glance. Trump says war is won, but we don't want to leave early and all in that space. Trump vows to end war soon as Iran hits ships, threatens banks, and toll on U.S. forces is emerging. Trump says Iran war to end soon as Israel claims no time limit. So definitely looks like there's some contradictory messages even between Trump and Netanyahu. And United States begins a new trade investigations. Trump is targeting major trading partners with new investigation, according to the New York Times. So U.S. launches unfair trade probes to rebuild Trump's tariff pressure. And definitely some people even asking, like at CNBC, why Section 301 probes matter and what they mean for Trump's tariffs. It looks like he may be trying to find some new ways to get those tariffs to go and all along those lines. 8 Arab and Islamic countries condemned Israeli closure of Al Aqsa Mosque. So, 8 Muslim countries, including the UAE, panned Israeli closure of that mosque amid Iran attacks. So, definitely that is something that folks are talking about as well. And China sends more warplanes toward Taiwan after a mystery lull. So, China's militarily has quietly cut flying near Taiwan, but it looks like they might be going back in that direction now. So for nearly 2 weeks, Chinese fighter jets stopped buzzing Taiwan. No one seems to know why, but we'll see if this is a lull that maintains or whether it is a lull that is not maintained. So we'll see how this all plays out. One third of Americans cut back uh, to cover healthcare expenses. So it looks like a lot of people were having to sacrifice a lot of things in order to deal with their health. So 1 in 3 say they cut back elsewhere to pay for healthcare. We don't know whether that's in their rent or in their utilities or what those cutbacks were in, but it does look like there was a number of things that folks were cutting back on. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at one of the statistics, and it looks like some people were cutting back on taking a vacation, some were cutting back on surgical or medical treatment, and some were cutting back on changing their jobs. That was just some of the things that were cut back on in order to deal with this whole situation. And Washington state lawmakers pass high income earners tax. House approves millionaires tax. Bill heading to Senate for confirmation and all along those lines. So we'll see how this plays out. And Governor Gavin Newsom says no imminent threat to California after an FBI memo on a possible terrorist attack. So Jimmy Kimmel addresses the nation of a drone strike on California, and Oscars ramp up security amid Iran drone attack concerns, because the FBI had warned Iran aspired to attack California with drones in retaliation for the war. And immigration detention cases decline amid Trump administration pullback from hardline tactics. So, how the DHS retreated on immigration tactics after Minneapolis. And while ICE lays low, they're still active while building up its fleet, offices, and detention centers. So, ICE down to just 47 extra deportation officers in Minnesota. And U.S. Senate advances bill to lower housing prices. So investors' ban on buying homes stalls housing affordability bill. So we'll see if we can get some of these housing prices to go down as well. Going to bring in Jim Eat. I think I've got Nick Palveda with me as well. We'll see who else joins us also in this particular edition of World Edition. But yeah, it looks like those gas prices are going to be going up. So what's your take on this, Jim, and everything like that?
Well, thanks, Mark. It was a serious miscalculation, if calculation was even involved by Trump, thinking that there would be limited consequences to these actions in Iran, which is certainly against international law. Congress didn't declare war on Iran, so this is an abuse of the executive power of the executive branch. You can't just get mad at somebody and start throwing missiles at their countries. And we were found to be liable for bombing a girls' school and killing young girls in Iran. And Trump tried to deflect that, and he said that it was friendly fire from Iran itself, which turned out to be nonsense, as much of what comes out of Trump's mouth is, because one of the things that is going on is that the Strait of Hormuz, it's very, very narrow, that lane, the shipping lane. So Iran's ability to mine it and to attack anything going through it has shut off countries like Kuwait and other Arab countries from exporting their oil to the rest of the world, taking millions of barrels of oil off of the global market. And if oil prices hit 150, you mentioned 200, but if it hits 150, it's enough to send economies into recession, including our own. But a global recession may be the result of this if prices go to 150. So this is a serious miscalculation. The effects on the world economy is by taking this illegal. International law was violated. American law was violated because Trump doesn't care what Congress thinks. He doesn't care what the Supreme Court thinks unless they agree with them. And he doesn't care what the international law is. So yes, he's being denounced by other countries, but he doesn't care about that. What are the consequences to him?
He doesn't care, and I don't know if y'all heard this, but I think I heard yesterday that he had another break because he was in Kentucky lobbying for a political candidate, and I think that somebody had fainted or something along those lines, so they had to take a break in his tirades against the Democrats and others to treat this particular individual. Probably was a MAGA individual, but I don't know that for a fact and everything like that. But they were definitely taking a break in that space. I see Rick has joined us. I got another question, getting away from Trump just for a minute, but apparently, and I know we've had a conversation about that here in the U.S. as well, because some people will say that we have a universal language, that being English and everything like that. And definitely there is some conversation about whether we are a Judeo-Christian nation, and even though there are different various religious groups, but apparently China wants its ethnic minorities to blend in, and they've now made a law. So China's passed a new ethnic minority law, and it prioritized the use of the Mandarin language. So Xi enforces his demand for ethnic unity across China. So he's requiring passing a law requiring minorities to learn Mandarin. So what is our thought about a country
that China does that should make us even more want to not do that even more.
Right.
There occasionally conservatives will bring up legislation to make English the U.S.'s official language.
Right.
We don't need it. The English remains the world's second language, even if you're around the world, no matter wherever you go. Like Nick in Spain, if you need somebody who speaks English, you can usually find somebody, right?
In the cities, about 17% of the population in Barcelona speaks English. In schools, they learn English in most of the European Union. So what happens, depending where you are in Europe, and most places in Europe, they speak English. If you go in the rural areas, then less people will speak English than the cities. When I was in Istanbul a couple of weeks ago, most of the people inside the city will speak English, and they'll also speak Turkish. So I tried to learn Turkish as much as I could. It was a different language. And that's one of the problems of traveling through Europe. But when I was in Budapest, I had to learn Hungarian, and that's a whole different language. And then I'm in Czechoslovakia. I was in Prague a couple of weeks before. I had to learn how to speak Czech. So when you're traveling, what you try to do is pick up the language as much as you can of the country that you're in. And obviously in Spain, my wife has become pretty good at Spanish.
Nick, are we still talking to the people in China and everything like that? Because I know there was a time that we were very active with the Chinese Facebook group.
It's the second most used language in the world, but it takes time to. I mean, you can learn a certain amount of words, but it takes time to become fluent in any language, and that's the real problem. And if you're mentally lazy, Rick, then you don't want to work at it because you got to work.
Yeah,
it's like,
but one thing. I mean, I haven't been as many places as you have, but people are still pretty friendly to Americans. I don't think people are mad at Americans for our government being dickish. I mean, you don't want to go to Iran, obviously, right now, or maybe ever. But most places, I don't think we're getting blamed for our president. I think people feel a little sorry for us, if anything.
Yeah, in Europe, I haven't heard any backlash about it, even though Spain has taken a position against what's going on and also complete neutrality, because Pedro, who's our prime minister, is very anti-war. And if you ever happen to come here, this place makes California look like a Republican democracy compared to Spain, which is a true liberal country. California is not. So what happens is that you guys look conservative compared to Spain. I'm just letting you know.
Well,
and so our whole thing is we're staying out of the war, but Spain has a history of doing that. They stayed out of World War II. They stayed out of World War I. They did have an internal conflict in the prior to World War II, the Spanish Civil War, which was not good. And I think they just got fed up with the whole war scene.
Can I bring up some dumb news?
Republicans in California.
Is Franco still dead?
Conservatives in California. When you come to Spain, you'll find out what true social democracy is all about.
Yeah, we'll find that out and everything like that.
Can I bring up some dumb news here?
Please.
So Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, has been walking around in shoes that are too big. Because
why would he do that?
What's he doing now?
Because Trump wants everybody to wear his shoes. He loves his black Florsheim shoes, and he's buying everybody in his cabinet shoes and guessing at their shoe size. So he bought Rubio a pair of shoes that were too big. Rubio's been seen walking around in these shoes that have a big gap out the back because they're 2 sizes too big. And apparently Rubio's too scared to wear other shoes.
Okay, I'm going to quote Bill Gates here. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard.
Yeah, that's why I called it the stupid news.
That is the stupidest thing I
No, wait a minute.
heard.
So you're telling me that Rubio wears like a size 9, but he's actually wearing a size 11?
No, Rubio wears Trump probably guessed size 10. Maybe Rubio wears a size 8. He's called Little Marco that's his nickname from Trump. He's not a huge guy. He's probably 5'9", and
yeah, he's not too tall. I can't drink enough Diet Coke to swallow what you just said. I mean,
But the pictures are out there.
That is so stupid. You can't be serious.
There's a picture of his whole cabinet all wearing the same shoes, and then there's our pictures of Rubio wearing the big shoes.
This has got to be fake. This cannot be.
It might be real and everything like that. We were just talking about shoes on yesterday's online dinner party because I had a Navy guest and everything like that. A gentleman is 91 years old. He's actually in your field, Nick. He's a lawyer and retired now, but retired lawyer and law professor, Jack Ratliff, and he was talking about what it takes to be a lawyer, and he was actually giving some very good advice, but he was talking about how when he was in the military, he had to get those infamous, because I had to get them when I was working a job in I think it was a pharmaceutical company. I might have been working shipping and receiving, but he was having to get those infamous steel toe boots and everything like that, and anybody that had to buy those knows that they're not comfortable whatsoever. So definitely, if you ever got to buy
them the right size, you wear 2 pairs of socks and you break them in, they can be okay.
They can be okay, but
and also it's steel-toed boots. It's like it's better to be a little bit uncomfortable and to have all your toes.
If you want to see what real lawyers do for a living, go watch The Lincoln Lawyer on Netflix. Okay, it was written by Michael Connolly, who was a beat writer for law, and it's actually very realistic. That's what you did. My short stint at the city attorney's office in Miami Beach, that is what it was like. I mean, it's not.
Well, it's not glamour, and that's even what Frank was saying and everything like that. He also had the pleasure of riding the bull. He said he'd never do that again because it was only a bet and everything like that. And
he did what?
They had to ride it for like 8 seconds, riding a bull like you do in a rodeo and everything.
Riding a bull on a rodeo?
Yeah.
One of those fake bulls?
No, this was a real bull. He was riding a Brom. He was riding a Brom bull, so a real bull, and it was like he was much younger.
You can run with the bulls in Spain if you want to, but people get gored doing it.
Yeah, they get gored running.
They have an annual festival if you want to come over here and work and run with the bulls.
Hey, I don't even like being bored, let alone gored.
Yeah,
you're gonna be. You won't be bored, but you will be gored.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen those demonstrations on TV, and it doesn't look
all that fun. That's real blood that's coming out when that bull gourds them. That's not a demo.
No,
isn't it like telling that Trump is telling his cabinet that they all have to wear the same shoes? The Chinese government is telling everybody they have to be the
same. Speaking of Trump and his things that he's hold on a second. Speaking of Trump and things that he's telling people, are we actually going to get? Because they've been talking about it. There was even an article in the Asbury Park Press, and I do remember Asbury Park because I had a cousin that lived there a while back. But are we actually going to get those $2,000 stimulus checks in March of this year? Because some people are asking that, because even the Trump administration is suggesting that the tariff refunds may take significant time, as small business owners are doubting they'll see refunds after the Supreme Court invalidates Trump's tariff. So is anybody going to get
there isn't going to be a tariff refund. I mean, please, it's not going to happen, because what happened is the Supreme Court struck it down. It was on our network that we invited Jeffrey Schwab 9 months ago, and we recorded it, who was the lead counsel for the case, Voss versus Trump. And I picked it up on the Supreme Court reports, and I said, these people have a chance to win. And lo and behold, Mark, they actually did win. It took 9 months, but they did win. And that was Jeffrey's first interview. It was actually on Pod TV 9 months ago. And then of course, it became a very famous case. I thought it had a chance to go to the Supreme Court. It did. I thought it had a chance to be stick Trump in the eye, and it did. And so now he's crying, "Oh, I can't do the refunds." Sorry, they're doing the refunds. It doesn't matter what he says. It's what the Supreme Court of the United States says, and that makes a difference. And so the refunds are taking place now. In terms of, I'm going to give everybody $2,000. He doesn't even have the power authority to do that. That's insane.
He's spending $1 to $2 billion a day on the war right now.
Well, that's what I'm saying. First of all, they don't have the money. You guys are 38 trillion in the hole, so you don't have the money for the refund. Number two, your tariff thing didn't work, so there is going to be no rebates. So if you're listening to that stuff, all you're doing is listening to smoke. Oh, number three, you guys are involved in a war, in a conflict. Now over in Spain, we don't have such a thing, but you guys are going to figure out how to pony it up, except for Sasha over there, because he's in Canada.
Well, they said the first week of the Iran war cost more than $11 billion. And that's what the Pentagon told Congress, that the first week of the war cost more than $11 billion.
No, it's a special military operation. It's not a war.
Yeah, I know. You're right. It can't be a war because Congress has to declare wars. It has to be special.
Yeah, so don't be throwing these words around loosely. You sound like the president.
Did you hear what he said? He said war. If he had any coaching at all, which he doesn't, and if he could take coaching,
if he listened, yes,
you would have told this moron, don't use the word war.
Department of War. I used to be a Department of Defense.
Military operation. But, he doesn't take coaching. And if he did, he doesn't take it very well. And so he used the wrong word.
Have you all talked about the girls' school yet today? Because
yes,
no, we don't want to talk
about it briefly, but if you want to go into more detail.
It seems to me that's similar to what happened with COVID. But it now seems that we targeted the girls' school because Trump and Hegseth fired the people at the Department of Defense who update your bombing lists. That they were working with obsolete information. With COVID, right, we had a shot at stopping COVID early, but Trump fired the early pandemic response team 2 years previous. So it seems like we're paying the price for Trump just cutting people willy-nilly.
Well, they kind of screwed that up, but it cost a lot of people their lives. It was, I think it was
everything like that. Speaking of things that have cost people their lives and people that are copying each other, I know that some people have said the Brazilian president is kind of like Trump, and now apparently Chile's got a Trump-like president. So they're saying that Kast inaugurated as nation's most conservative leader there in Chile, and they're saying Kast is more like Trump. Chile's environmentalists are preparing to do battle for the country's future, and he has even praised Pinochet, and we know Pinochet was a dictator, so that's not a good sign if you got the new leader praising an old dictator and everything like that. So
we used to export democratic values, but now we've imported czarist values from Russia, and so Trump is trying to think like Putin thinks. And
are they going to make Chile great again? Is that what's going to happen?
Yeah. And, if Cuba had oil, we would already have invaded Cuba. So the oil is the primary thing. The reason we went into Venezuela, killed the people in boats and kidnapped their president and his wife and seized what we used to call piracy, seized their boats that contained oil. So you don't have to follow the money as much as follow the oil is what's motivating Trump here. At home, like cryptocurrency, follow the money, but his foreign policy is based on how do I get more oil, and take it rather than make it. And
that's his whole attitude and everything like that. Hey, Sasha, Russia's in the middle of a war with Ukraine, a war that apparently they are losing on a regular basis and everything like that. But they've somehow managed to have time to have a court case that involved a Moscow concert hall attack in 2024. So I would think that most of Russia would be kind of like having their action stopped, including their court cases. But what do I know? I've never been to Russia and everything like that. So I just wondered if you've heard about this concert case, because apparently they convicted 19 people over the deadly 2024 attack, even though they're in the middle of an attack of their own and everything like that. So I was wondering if you've heard anything about this particular trial, because I'm surprised they've still got trials going on.
Well, it's a minor distraction on a bigger picture. In the bigger picture, you have to understand that Ukrainians are crushing Russian army on all Ukrainian front. Russians don't have even places to hide because they're just running away from Ukrainians, and Ukrainians keep attacking them. Russians avoid any fights against Ukrainians because Ukrainians are better equipped, they're more experienced, they're physically much stronger than Russians. So Russians are trying to hide them without any success. They're losing at least 1,500 men a day, and it could go even to a higher picture. But 1,500, it's a threshold. That's what Ukrainian commanders gave orders. Not a single day without killing at least 1,500 Russians. So that's going on schedule, and that creates a kind of very interesting situation. If Ukrainians will very quickly get to their borders of 1991, should they move forward and start occupying Russian territory, as Russians did against Ukraine 4 years ago? We'll see. We'll see. First of all, they have to get to the border of 1991. They're not there yet. Once they will get there, then we will see. And another interesting thing what's happened is that the Iranian president, he spelled out conditions for American get a peace. It's withdrawal from all the Iranian territory if they occupied any. I've never heard about that. And then they have to arrange and start payments of reparations to Iran, and completely close all this war types activity. You can call it special operation or whatever it might be. Something else is happening is that the Gulf countries, they completely lost any faith in concept that America can protect them. It's nullified, it's out, it's no longer there. So these regimes who paid the United States hundreds of billions of dollars, if not trillion, for possibly cover against Iranians, some kind of guarantees, some kind of beliefs that they will protect them in case of Iranian attack. No, United States is not capable to protect anybody, even their own military bases. They are not able to protect the ships in the Strait of Hormuz. That leads to a situation where America will start losing the trust which it built in the last 80 years around the world. Their guarantees are zero. They cannot protect anybody and anything, even including their own military bases. American soldiers and officers, they're leaving their bases in the Gulf and they're moving to hotels. So now the same hotels where they're moving becoming targets for Iranian drones and ballistic missiles. So now Arabs, they're asking Americans not to stay in their hotels, because the hotels are becoming liabilities and they will be annihilated by Iranian drones. America is losing big time. It's not even comparable to whatever Vietnam, Afghanistan, whatever else you had before. Forget it. That was a nice picnic. Now it's a time for the biggest loss of United States in its history. Thank you, Donald Trump. You've done it. The 250th anniversary, people will remember what's happened with Iran.
Yeah, I definitely remember that for sure and everything. Hey, Rick, your daughter, if I remember correctly, is still in the whole Europe area and everything
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. And I just saw an interesting article that I wanted to talk to you about and hear your thoughts, because I know that we've sometimes talked about high prices here in the U.S. and everything, but apparently there's some serious high price in London as well. So they're saying that high price in London has pushed more people in that area to live with roommates well into their late 20s and
So
30s, and they can
it
afford to move
depends on
out
what
of their
you're
cramped
talking
homes at
about.
all.
Food is cheap over there. I mean, grocery store food is cheap. I was thrilled and the rest of my family was disgusted when I found in a Tesco grocery store nearly expired sushi, a little tray of it for $1.50. Everybody's like, "Don't eat that," but I was like, "Whoa, that was exciting." In LA, like a sushi dinner now is at least $30. So food cheap, restaurant meals not cheap, but maybe cheaper than you'd expect for a big fancy city. Housing, freaking ridiculous. All the houses in London are these Victorian houses that were built 120 years ago without even bathrooms back then. And then they sell it, they put it, and that's the whole housing stock. Except for the part that got blown up in World War II. And so, our kid just got her first house, and it is, we had to help out the way parents do. Was a ton of money for 850 square feet.
Wow.
And that is standard. People live in little tiny spaces.
And that's what they were saying in this article. They were saying that many rental properties no longer have living rooms to make way for an extra bedroom, and they're having multiple roommates in order to.
When they say a
afford the cost.
bedroom, you say bedroom in the U.S., you're thinking of at least 10 feet by 11 feet with a closet. The second bedroom in a London house is 7 feet by 8 feet if you're lucky. You got room for a bed and a nightstand and maybe a rack for your clothes, and that's it.
Well, just really quickly, because I'm horrible with conversions, and those of you that are better at conversions, maybe you can explain to me, because they say the average home in the city of London sells for more than £550,000. So what is that in U.S. dollars?
That's over $700,000. It's close to, it's about $750,000. But what
It's
you're
25% more.
What you're getting is you're paying the same prices in London that you're paying per square foot that you pay in LA, which is $1,000 a square foot, which is a ton of money.
Yeah.
There's nothing in Menlo Park selling for as little as $700,000. So
it's similar, like around San Francisco that Jim's talking about. Is you might be making $250,000 a year if you're lucky enough to still have a coding job in San Francisco, but you've got 5 roommates. You're in a 1,200 square foot apartment where everybody's paying $2,000 a month to share a kitchen and a bathroom.
Yeah, rents are astronomically high. I don't know how young people get started now. But the idea, I think the irony might be lost on some, that Ukraine is helping us and Israel and with drones, with technology. They're teaching us how to use drones and the technology. And so Ukraine is not only fighting against Russia's strategic military operation, that it was invaded so long ago, and Putin thought it would be a cakewalk to get to Kiev, and he found out differently. And I think it's the only reason China has not invaded Taiwan is because Putin taught them that maybe it's not so easy. But China's now saber rattling again. And, I used to invest in this company called Taiwan Semiconductors, and it was a fabulous investment for me. It did very, very well. But, I because of the geopolitical pressures, I pulled out. But, when we start invading other countries and bombing them and taking their presidents and kidnapping their presidents and doing all of these illegal activities, how do we take the moral high ground when Putin invades Ukraine, when China maybe invades Taiwan? Where's our moral high ground? We've spent it. We have no moral high ground. So not only do we not have the confidence in other countries that we can protect them, but they don't trust us entirely at all anymore. We've wasted the trust of the rest of the world.
Speaking of wasting that trust,
Jim, high moral ground is talking to Russians about $12 trillion deal. That's a high moral ground for
Yes.
United States.
Yes.
Welcome to hell. You'll be punished for that.
Well,
speaking
have
of
you
that,
talked
hey,
in detail?
Jim,
Have you
just,
talked-
Jim, just really quickly, do you think that will give people more leeway to do those invasions? Whether it's China, I just told you that Chile's got a right-wing leader now, and Brazil's had a right-wing leader for a while. Brazil's a fairly big country
What's to
in
stop
America.
them?
So will this give them the notion of possibly invading some of their neighbors and everything? Because isn't Honduras not that far from Chile?
What's
China
to stop them?
has internal invasion. China owns Tibet and some other ethnic enclaves.
Yeah.
China's not going to invade Taiwan. China's going to be patient, but internally they will continue to suppress. We were just talking about it. Their ethnic minorities.
Right.
Why do I lost my point?
Well, Hong Kong is not what it
The drones, like, yeah, the Hong Kong was lost. I don't see how how Hong Kong could have held out.
Right.
They had a 99-year lease, the Brits, and then they had to give up the lease. It ran out. They had to turn over Hong Kong to China, and they would try to extract a bunch of promises that Hong Kong could continue to operate as it had, which was like a ultra free economic anything goes place. And no, it didn't stay that way. It's still freer than a lot of parts of, well, also China's, it's communistic, but unless you're a frickin' industrialist, then you do what you want. But the drone thing with Ukraine, a year ago, Ukraine went to the U.S. and said, we've been fighting with drones against Russia for 3 years now, and we can teach you about how to make drones cheaply. Ukraine makes 10,000 drones a day, 4 million a year. We can teach you how to counter drones. We can teach you how to make drones for cheap. And the U.S. under Trump said, no, thank you, Ukraine.
So I think we're missing it, though. I think we're missing it because we're looking at it from the old perspective. War has changed. The world has changed. You don't have to sit there, Mark, to answer your question. Yes, it doesn't. China doesn't have to go in firing ballistic missiles and all this other stuff. We're thinking the old ways. We're thinking of, they have to come in marching. There's different ways they could do that. From cyber attacks to, just a whole litany of things. If you want to go to the Russia and Ukraine example, how Russia is now helping Iran a lot more with positioning and how to overwhelm the artillery or the counter airstrike arsenal that the U.S. gave Ukraine. They figured a way to do that. That's why they're able to get by that. So now, hey, guess who's now getting by all these anti-air defenses? Iran is now doing that. They're able to hit these areas that they weren't before because Russia's now helping them, because there's that evolution. So they're ahead of the game. And Ukraine would have to come in because they're dealing with Russia and how to actually counter what Russia's doing. So we're behind the game in that. So again, yes, China will. This opens the door for everything. Everything is now on the table. We don't have a moral high ground. We don't have the ability to police the world. All we're doing right now is trying to conquer things. We are now colonizing like we did ancient time or years ago. So we are no longer this beacon on the hill. We're doing the same thing everybody else is doing.
Take rather than make.
And even worse, this is why I pointed out before. This is when you read the article talking about, hey, these other countries are talking about looking into nuclear arms. Of course they are. There's nobody out there that's going to protect them. They had a deal with the U.S. Now they can't trust that deal. So you know what they're going to do? Hey, it's a nuclear arms race. That's
China is the guy that hangs around with your girlfriend waiting for you to fuck up. And then the girlfriend, after you're an asshole, turns to the guy who's just a friend, says, my boyfriend's such an a-hole. And, so China can be patient and just stand back and get the girlfriend, after we screw up some more.
Well, speaking of being patient and everything,
other places have played the long game.
Yeah, they're playing the
long
game. What
we have done is forgotten about the long game. We tried to make everybody into an evil competitor. honestly, we should not have been so aggressive with China in the way that we have. We
Right.
should have tried to think of China as in a different light, as a true competitor on the global scene, rather than a full-blown enemy on the global scene.
And
That's
engage with
different
them,
tactic.
trade with them. Yeah.
Yeah, engage with them, play
Completely
with them,
different
and do
tactic
stuff
of how
like
you
that.
handle it.
Yeah, but we're not doing that. I did have a question for you, Jim, and Sasha. You may have some thoughts as well, because I know yesterday y'all did y'all's modern investment show, and I think Rick kind of alluded to it earlier, because shoe wear is a big industry and everything like that. But I was just wondering, would you invest in Dick's Sporting Goods, since they recently merged with Foot Locker and everything like that? So I was just wondering, because apparently they saw better than expected holiday shopping season, but their profits fell by 57%, due largely to that acquisition of Foot Locker. So I was just wondering, would you invest in something like a company like Dick's Sporting Goods has been around?
They are retail. Retail is ask Jim, ask Sasha. Retail is brutal.
It's bricks and mortars are also a thing of the past now. I walk down a busy main street that with boarded up windows. It's like, everything is, and I was at one of our favorite restaurants last week, and I talked to the owner, because we've been going there for years. And the owner says that, dinner's still okay, but lunch traffic is not what it used to be, not a fraction of what it used to be, because people aren't going into the office spaces and going out for lunch. So things have changed, and the changes, we're at the cusp of a hockey stick type of change. AI is having a tremendous effect on these things. So the bricks and mortar retail stores, the malls, people don't go shopping in the malls like they used to.
Yeah, they don't do that
Well,
anymore.
I have a tip. There's one good reason to have a retail store or a restaurant at this point, and that is money laundering. Like in Breaking Bad, if you're a huge meth dealer or a coke dealer, and you
Tony Soprano taught us that.
Yeah, Soprano taught us that. But hold on a second. But in that same relationship, apparently a Qatari-backed fund is getting ready to buy a major restaurant chain, because they're offering $1.5 billion for the pizza giant Papa John's and everything like that. So this is a Qatari-backed fund that's going to try to do that, and maybe that's their way of laundering some of their money.
It could be. I mean, the Middle Eastern countries, Saudi, they have a ton of money. They don't mind losing money if it means they can buy leverage. They gave Jared Kushner, the president's unqualified son-in-law, $2 billion to invest in a hedge fund, even though he had no previous hedge fund experience, because it got him huge leverage.
So yes, there's sports washing, and there's all the other stuff. Like the Saudi-backed companies have bought into Live, which is a pro golfing thing.
Right.
There's even there are other industries that they bought into. The Saudi-backed company bought Electronic Arts, which is one of the larger publishers in the gaming community or in the gaming industry. Right. So they're doing a lot of this stuff, yes, for leverage, and also to change the image of what they do, because there are a lot of things, human rights violations that they have, but you're not going to think about that when you're out there playing golf. That's not on your mind. You're not going to think about that when you're playing Madden football. It's not on your mind.
Or when you're eating Papa John's.
Sports washing. But also, Mark, in terms of like the brick and mortar stuff, that's a whole nother element. There's other ways to utilize the brick and mortar, and I think some companies will be fine. But the big thing, if we're talking about these places to go and people to meet, we're forgetting that right now they just raised polio to level 2 across the globe because they're now outbreaks. In the U.S., mumps is making a comeback.
Yeah.
Also, measles is still going crazy. So that is all a lot. The measles, mumps, and rubella will probably be next, because they've attacked the vaccine so much and given an anti-vax individual the head of HHS. So therefore, and actually even his second in command is an anti-vax individual. He was the one that was helping RFK sue these places so they can make money suing on this stuff. So right now we have wars abroad, and we're having diseases.
I mean, I know it was 5 years ago that we had the pandemic, but I think COVID is still out there. I know some people that have still had it, maybe not having the fatalities, but definitely it's still out there.
Right.
So COVID is still there. COVID is adapting. I mean, it
Yeah, I
diseases
get a
don't
COVID
really-
shot every year now, like a flu
Yeah.
shot.
Yeah, because that's what it's become endemic, if I remember the word. And they're talking about measles may become endemic, which is horrible because it was dead just a few years ago, but we had the largest outbreaks of measles under this president, his first administration, and now his second administration. Rubella, mumps, we've had the largest outbreaks since 2004 under this administration, and now it looks like it's growing again. It had dropped down to 400 and some odd with mumps. It had dropped down to 450 some cases in a full year. We're already sitting at 350 plus cases this year alone. So right now we're having problems, and this administration is not addressing those. They're just exacerbating these problems, and we got a lot of stuff. Got a lot of stuff going on.
Jacoby, what you're referring to is one of the consequences of electing a president who's got over 30 felony convictions. He's declared bankruptcy 6 times. This guy has run a con all his life, and he's not a successful businessman. What had happened to Trump vodka? What happened to Trump University? What happened to Trump steaks? Now it's going to be Trump shoes. Come on. The list goes on and on. But the main thing that we're talking about now is he's surrounded himself by incompetence. It didn't used to matter so much if it was a Democratic or Republican president because they hired professionals in the jobs. When you put incompetence in these jobs, what you're seeing now is the result in terms of our healthcare. In California, there was a recent survey. The number one worry is that they're going to go bankrupt because of the health.
One of the codes I mentioned earlier, Jim, as you know, when I started with this notion of people sacrificing stuff in order to be able to afford healthcare and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the number one concern. Housing is second, and the other is groceries. And you know what? Our choices of groceries are going to get more expensive, and we're going to have fewer choices because of stupid tariffs, which are nothing but taxes on the American consumer. And when people wake up and they go to the polls, speak up and speak out, roar like my lion over my shoulder, throw the bums out. We cannot, this is not the country. We're exporting czarist principles rather than democratic values. So these are the types of things that we can change if we show up and vote. Throw the bums
speaking
out.
of which, don't forget, every Monday at 2:00, you can catch another episode of Jim Eid and Roar and everything like that. So that is when we are airing that immediately after the timeshare show and everything like that. So on Mondays at
I owe you a show, Mark. Thank you for reminding me.
Can we go back to money laundering for just a sec? Say you're driving down the street at night and you run over something and you hope it wasn't like a kid. You get out, it's a duffel bag with $2 million in it. You quickly throw it into your car, you hide it when you get home. What are you going to do with that money? You can't spend it. You can't, if you show up, if you do a cash transaction above $10,000, somebody will report it. So what you have to do is you have to become a contractor and start flipping houses, or you open a pop-up restaurant and then you pay your people under the table cash, and then you take the receipts of the restaurant plus some cash you add in. Then you can start using that money saying, oh yeah, my restaurant's great. We're making a ton of money.
What happened to the old-fashioned days where people...
Money laundering? Just to speak on money laundering, another thing that we're forgetting is that just yesterday they announced that they were going to look into the convicted felon we just talked about because evidently $60 million is now gone from the commitments to his library. It's kind of funny how that money disappeared. Also on testifying yesterday, which also was kind of funny to me. They had Epstein's money person, who is definitely taking a fall, and you can see based on his testimony, because he supposedly reported that Epstein supposedly stole $200 million from 2 people that he continued to work with, and that's how he got his money, and the people that he continued to work with that he stole the money from did not report it. So that's how he's
being reported today. Being reported this week, Trump is now worth $6.5 billion, which is
fully president.
According to Forbes magazine, his net worth is up $1.4 billion from a year ago.
But how much is that construction on that
No, well, a lot of
Lovely
it's
ball.
crypto.
And he's
Mark, he can't make money. So when you ask about the construction, it's not his business. Supposedly, he's
the
not
American
supposed to be
people
making
paying
that money.
for it. Yeah, you're not supposed to use the presidency to enrich yourself. It's one of the primary things. People would have to resign in scandals if there were $50,000 that was involved. Come on. When are we going to say enough is enough? The
Well,
guy
speaking of enough is enough, and we still got 10 minutes, but I did want to get to another story that's kind of interesting, and I think this may be another one of Trump's friends, and it's a kind of sad story, but it is definitely interesting because we all know about the Gotti family and the Gotti's notoriety and everything like that, but apparently Victoria Gotti, the daughter of the late mob boss, is saying that she could die if her son goes to prison before she gets the kidney from him. So she's apparently approved the kidney to get from Carmine Agnello, who's giving her his kidney. So she's begging the judge not to jail her son until she gets the kidney. So what is y'all thoughts around that? Because it seems to me that would be fair. Give the woman the kidney and then.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If you have to resort to losing a kidney to stay out of prison, that seems like a fair trade. I don't know what he's going to prison for. What's he going to prison for?
The presidency's already taken, so he has to do something else.
Yeah, let me see what he's going to do. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure it's probably got to do with that whole mafia crime and probably going to prison for a number of things.
Made me laugh because it was kind of a random thing to drop in.
The correct term is not mafia. It's called Italian businessman.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Yes,
It's
and
called-
strategic military operation, not war.
Instead of
Yeah,
laundering,
it's a special operation. It's not a war. Yeah, we got to
instead
get
of
our
laundering the money, it will be laundering.
He pleaded. To answer your question, he pleaded guilty to wire fraud tied to about
Well,
$1.1 million in federal COVID-19 small business relief loan. So that's what he was convicted of with
Okay.
everything like that.
Yeah. So
Prosecutor
he took those
said he should
PPP
serve
loans
31 to
and
44 months in prison when he sentenced to federal court Friday by a U.S. district judge and everything like that. So that's what the charge was.
I think that, yeah, he should be able to trade a kidney for staying out of prison, especially considering that he took $1.1 million and didn't pay it back when there are probably at least 10 members of Congress who took more than that and didn't pay it back.
All the money.
There's
There's going to be a lot of
people with money.
professional kidneys out there.
There's a lot of people that have gotten away with money and everything like that. Speaking of just some entertainment news that was out there that I had seen that I had forgotten about because he has not been in the news recently and everything like that. But Bill Cosby is back in the news because he's out of prison and out of the public eye, but he is facing a civil trial. So I guess people that were involved in his case and he was involved in stuff similar to Epstein are now going to take him to court on civil trial now that he's out of prison and everything like that. And yeah, he was totally out of the public eye because I had not
Fair
heard
enough.
anybody.
Yeah, America's dad. Yeah, I remember thinking the greatest things about him. You never know. You never know.
Well,
So
Last night on Kimmel, he did a bit about reasons to be happy, even though the world's on fire. And on his list was you can always masturbate. And so somebody should have told Bill Cosby that 50 years ago, instead of drugging that. Gen Z knows this. Gen Z isn't having sex. They're staying home. They're on their phones, and occasionally they masturbate to take care of that. So take a lesson from Gen Z.
oh my
Yeah.
God.
You can take that lesson from Gen Z. This is the week because actually I was supposed to have been going to it, but unfortunately our finances were not able to do it this year, Nick and everything like that. But it looks like South by Southwest is taking place. And that's going to be going on. So we'll see a lot of entertainment folks in Austin, Texas. And apparently they're saying no badge, no problem. There are 20 free events that you can go to. So I do know that a lot of times at these festivals, there'll be free events as well. But I won't be there this year. Maybe I'll be there in 2027 and everything like that.
Thank you for that uplifting thought. Yeah. And it's showing a high note, Mark.
I'm trying to show a high note that there's things that you can do free. and things like that. So there's free entertainment as well. And of course, the Oscars are coming up, so that's a high note as well. So we know a lot of people are looking at that and everything like that. I am seeing that some of the entertainers are in news on sad news because apparently Britney Spears was arrested. I mean, not her, she wasn't arrested. She was arrested on suspicion of a DUI in California and everything like that. So it looks like her former assistant was arrested, not her herself.
Oh,
It actually says she was arrested. So there's conflicting news and everything. Because they even say that there's a mugshot of Britney Spears. So I guess she was arrested along with her assistant.
yeah.
Okay, now I have a question for the panel.
One like
Let's
this,
see who
one
knows
like
the
that.
answer to this question.
Yes.
Who won the America's Cup in St. Louis?
Wesley So.
So
That is correct.
Who won?
So. You're right. The America's Cup in St. Louis. Who won it? It was Wesley So.
and they had a doubles.
First time he's ever won it.
The
Women who became American winner among women. Anybody?
Who won the American? Who won the women?
it was Yip. What
Who
was it?
became
One-
women's American Cup champion?
All right.
I'm going to guess Yip. I know she was in the finals, but I don't know what the outcome was.
So what's happened to the chess talent pool over the say last 30 years? Has it gotten deeper?
Yes.
Because people can play, versus computers, which are better than people.
Yes, we have world contenders, Nakamura, Karana, Fabiano. These guys are real world championship type caliber, and we are deeper. And the American team and the women's team are very strong. And it's because of the St. Louis phenomena. New York used to be the Mecca. It's moved to St. Louis. A billionaire whose love of chess has created a St. Louis Chess Club, which holds these events. That's where they were playing for the
It doesn't just hold chess events, it holds some great concerts. I know that Reese Palmer, who's a local artist, has performed there, and a number of other jazz and blues artists have performed in that venue. So that venue had become.
And real estate prices
not
in
just
St.
for
Louis
chess,
are
but-
much cheaper than Menlo Park.
Yeah.
Real estate prices in St. Louis are still affordable, at least by our standards.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they're much affordable in St. Louis, like I said, but they're doing a lot of great concerts. I was afraid that the U.S., speaking of sports and everything like that, was not going to make it to a particular major event because, this is supposed to be America's pastime, which is baseball and everything like that. And it looked like we were not going to make it to the World Baseball Classic quarterfinals, but with some luck, they actually managed to make it to the next round as Italy beat Mexico, and now Team USA is still there. But there was a serious worry that the U.S. was not going to make it, even though
Italy came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Italy won its group going 4-0, which is surprising, except that the whole thing is how many big league players can you get on your team? There are a ton of Italian Major League Baseball players, and so they stacked the Italian team and they kicked ass and they took out Aaron Judge's American team.
Yeah. And like I said, they managed to go in that sense. And apparently in basketball, somebody had an 83-point night. So that's not very easy to do. Bam Adebayo had 83-point night last night. So he scored 83 points in a game.
But he shot 43
Well, there's an asterisk by it because they started following the other team to get the ball back and feeding him. It was a fiasco.
They kept, it was when
he
had 62 points after 3 quarters. The other team, which is trying to, which was not going to win, no chance, and which is maybe tanking to get a higher draft pick.
Yes,
Toby probably under the LA Times ran a whole story about this, bitching about this because Kobe is the one whose record got broken, who had 81 points.
Right.
So just to put it out there, both the Kobe 81 points and the Bam Adebayo 83 points were done in roughly about the same fashion. Once you reach a particular level, you begin to get fouled, you begin to be put on the line, it's just, hey, we're going to force feed him so he can score some points. So it's not really, so LA is mad because it beat Kobe's number. Kobe was number 2. Wilt Chamberlain is still number 1 at 100 points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Wilt may get beaten at some point, but it's going to be beaten in the same way. Somebody taking a ton of shots, somebody taking a ton of free throws, somebody being force-fed the ball just so they can score. That's really what happened with Kobe. What happened with Wilt. That's what happened with Bam. Even LeBron, when he was going for his 70 points or whatever, 60, 70 point game, it just happens. I mean, you can get hot in the first half, end up with some 30 points, 20, 30 points. Many players have done that. Even Victor Wembanyama has, put up like 20 some odd points in the first half and looked like he was, or 20, 30 points, and he was on the way there. But they usually rest the people because the game is, they're competing.
Yeah, they're competing. Hey, to tell me before we wrap up, I was glad to hear some good news, though, and everything in this age of NILs. And I know that even Sasha has mentioned on a couple of his shows, and a couple of other people have mentioned on their shows, in this age of NIL, and not saying that Marquette won't get an NIL players. We just concluded our horrible year, losing in the first round of the Big East last night and everything like that. But our star player has committed to not going, even though he could easily get an NIL deal. So Nigel James has already committed to staying in the team, and he got the Big East Rookie of the Year and everything like that. So
a lot of kids are going to stay because if you're not a top 10 pick, you're not going to make a lot of money. You can make more money staying in college. And then that's where there was an NBA D-leaguer that ended up playing for Alabama, and he got an NIL deal. So NIL, until it's going to be regulated correctly, it's just going to cause more and more problems for college sports.
It's ruined.
But it is fair for the athletes. I mean,
of course,
they should get some big money. But without, like, there's so many stories about athletes who would have great pro careers. They blow out their ACL their junior year and they're done. That kid should have a chance to have a $1.5 million junior year.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I used to go to Wilt's Place all the time. I used to be at Wilt's Place every Friday and met Wilt Chamberlain once because he had a restaurant, believe it or not, in Boca Raton, Florida. It was called Wilt's, had good food. All I can tell you about Wilt Chamberlain, he's tall.
Yeah.
Very tall.
Being tall, I can also tell you this. Nigel James is not that tall. He's about my height. He's like 6 feet.
No, he's not.
He's not going to make the NBA and everything like that. He might make overseas, but he won't be playing the NBA.
The problem with the NIL is that there's so many problems that come with it right now.
Right.
It can be fair for some players because just as if you look at even in pro level sports, it's fair for some players, not all players. There are a lot of players that end up getting screwed because you're trying to sign this big time money deal with this individual. And that's what happens with the NIL too. And a lot of schools get screwed because they're not able to put up the same money as a big time school like Michigan State. Hey, they've got all this money and all these backers. Alabama. Hey, these schools in the SEC that have all this money around football. They have a ton of backers and a ton of funding. So then you have these struggling conferences that end up having to shutter the whole conference.
More Pac-12 conference. I'm a season ticket holder for 20 years, and I'm thinking I'm not going to renew next year because
there is no more Pac-12.
There's no more Pac-12. They're in the ACC. Stanford is in the ACC. They have to fly across country to play a conference game. Come on, man, something's wrong.
Or they have to go to Miami to play the U.
Yeah. So it's like these super conferences and all
that's what they're going to, honestly, is these giant super conferences because again, it's money. And there are a lot more schools that are going to miss out. And that's a lot. And that's what NIL does. Don't get me wrong. NIL is what's necessary to help these players.
So yeah.
But we've got to be able to figure out a way where it's not destroying these players as well. Because a lot of times, and this was before NIL, they did the study and you're looking at 60-70% of the actual individuals that go into professional sports end up flat broke within 2 to 3 years. So now you're taking that same mindset now to collegiate individuals that are actually younger. So now, that individual that you're talking about that blew out his knee, take, for example, Greg Oden, who was a dominant player at Ohio State, played with Conley. And Oden was actually supposed to be the number one pick, was one of the top picks coming out in the draft. Yeah, he blew out his knee and was injured. He sucked in the NBA. He wasn't good at all. Conley ended up doing really well, but
there's an easy
now he's
fix.
flat broke.
There's an easy fix. We have child actor laws now after a bunch of kid actors' parents stole all their money, left them broke when they grew up. You set up a trust where a certain percent has to go into a fund that you can't touch until you're 30 years old.
Yeah, because like I said, we can wrap up. But
However,
or you get a pension. You get a pension. Like you last 4 years in the NFL, you get a pension. A lot of people.
No, there are pensions. There are pensions in the NFL. There are pensions in some of the sports franchises. I know that there's
I think retirement in the NFL hits at 3. The other sports hits at 4.
Right.
That's when you get your secondary contracts.
I think Trump has put our tariff rebates into
Yeah, he put the tariff rebates into there and everything. Nick was talking about seeing those tall players and everything like that.
Trump actually, no, real quick, because before we even get off the NIL stuff, Trump actually tried to hold this conference talk on the NIL, which is idiotic. He should not be talking about college sports at all.
Was he trying to start his own team?
He's trying to take away NIL and go back before NIL, which ends up going back to screw the kids. He wants to take all the money away. So he's trying to take it back to old.
That's all women's sports need is a Trump endorsement.
Well, Trump killed an entire football league. There was an alternate football league in the 90s, and Trump
XFL
had a team, and his screwing around took down the league.
Yep. Yeah, and then he tried to buy He tried to buy the Buffalo Bills right after that, and they told him to keep walking.
Toby, what's happened with the CBA agreement and the WNBA?
That's still up in the air because they had that meeting. What was it? 2 days ago they had the meeting, and they were supposedly they were coming close to a deal, but then they end up breaking it off.
Yeah, the owners gave a deadline, and we know how that works. Yeah.
And so the date may get pushed back for the season. They need to pay the women.
Yeah.
Women's basketball is one of the hottest sports right now.
They sell out. The Valkyries sell out in Chase Arena.
Like unrivaled. I don't know if you got a chance to watch the Unrivaled tournament and the Unrivaled season.
I've been following it, but I haven't watched it. Yeah.
It is so much fun. It is such a great thing. And honestly, the NBA should do a lot of Unrivaled stuff because it's a much faster game. Plus the one-on-one tournament that they did, they need to use that instead of using the.
I gotta run, guys.
Guys, yeah, we're all geared to get out of here. But Toby, have you watched that cheerleading competition? Because apparently there's a national cheerleading competition that's getting some play as well. So I don't know if you've been watching that, but I saw that was on TV and everything. And Nick was talking about seeing the old players and everything like that, like Will Chamberlain at that restaurant. I do remember this was decades ago when there was Cherokee Parks and Cheyenne Parks, who were both basketball players at Duke University. Cheyenne actually had a modeling agency not that far from Talk of the Town and everything like that. But I don't know what the heck happened to Cheyenne and Cherokee now, because I don't think they ever made it that far in the NBA. I think he had a brief NBA career, didn't he? Cherokee did.
Yeah, I hadn't talked to any of them, or hadn't had a chance to watch any of the cheerleading stuff yet. But yeah, I wanted to, but I hadn't had a chance to.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't caught it yet either. I do want to catch it because that is more of an intensive sport than people think it is, because that cheerleading is no joke if you actually watch cheerleaders. That is actually a very intense sport. So I'm hoping to catch some of it, just like I hope to catch some of the gymnasium stuff and other stuff that's going on as well. But right now, let's get on out of here. We will have world politics later on today. Coco will actually be a rerun because she's celebrating her birthday. So today, Coco McMillan is celebrating her birthday along with her mom. So we'll be running a rerun on that particular show at 6 o'clock. Right after World Politics. But I'll send you a link for World Politics, and we'll see who shows up at 5 o'clock. But right now, let's get on out of here.
All right.